Hey, so ooh, this is too loud. So, welcome to Stream Science Episode 3. I should probably put this gate down just a tiny bit. There we go. That should be a little nicer. Um, so, uh, last episode was kind of crap, and then I had a lot of PC issues, and now we have Episode 3. So, and I'm also wearing a headset so I can kind of listen to myself. Um, yeah, it's kind of weird because I'm listening to the processed version, which has like that little bit of latency. I could change that around, but then I'm not actually listening what goes into the broadcast. So this is gonna make sure that the stream doesn't have audio issues like it did before. I can probably turn down how much I hear of myself. Yeah, that's a lot less disorienting. But anyways, so this episode is going to be less about stuff that I kind of know what I'm doing but can't really explain properly, and more about stuff I can actually talk about with a lot more ease. So we're going to be doing that. And I changed up the camera a little bit. It used to be on that angle. Now it's on this angle. Realistically, I would like to have it right in the middle, but my TV's kind of resting on two bookshelf speakers right now. So if I had a camera on top of that, it would be a really steep angle looking downwards instead of kind of like a more natural angle, or at least height wise. This is probably as high as the camera realistically should go. And if I put it on top of the TV right now, it'd add about an extra foot ish. So would rather not do that. But new thing, we can switch over to it right now. It should pop up any second now. Come on. Come on. I don't understand game capture. Come on. There we go. Okay. That took way too freaking long. And this can probably actually go. Well, if I shrink this, make this larger, and then do this. Hey, okay. So, I'm using my, I've had it for a while, Wacom tablet, as you can see. Yay. And I figure drawing what I'm talking about will make a lot more sense and be a lot less boring. But basically, if you already don't know, also, why is this? Oh, God dang it. Stay. Okay. Cool. Much better. I am the technical director for NASA Marathon, which is a speedrun event. And I've been doing it for a while now. I basically stumbled into the role for the first NASA, and that was a hodgepodge of a lot of different people basically bringing equipment and assisting in every way they can. And then I kind of took the role of leading everything. So that's what I'm going to go over in this episode here. There's a lot that I learned from the first event. In general, all of us learned a lot of different things, and I want to kind of go over them. So, but first, we're going to go over kind of like the basic thing, and that is the actual venue. So, the event itself was in Chicago, outside of Chicago. It's Chicago area, essentially. It was like Addison or something like that. And everything was great. The room, I can actually draw. Oh, where'd my mouse go? Brush. Okay. No, oh, I wanted the brush. We're off to a great start here. Hey, okay. So the room layout was actually great. You had like this here. this was actually an air wall. And then this was like a door. So we're going to just like door. And, you know, actually, can I? No, it's not going to. I forget how this thing works, actually. I haven't used my Wacom tablet in years. That's a right click, and that's a left click, and oh my gosh, go away. Is there an eraser? Come on. Eraser. There we go. That looks like an eraser to me. Okay, I will get used to this eventually. Hold on. So that was kind of like the layout of the rooms there, which, if you think about it, is pretty awesome because the way that it worked is that, you know, we had TVs pretty much here, you know, here, and here, and here, here. It was fantastic. And then, you know, this was like the Mafia circle. People would conglomerate here and play Mafia, and otherwise they would practice all their video games around here. It was perfect, and it was separated. And then this is where the actual stream room was. So, you know, you'd have like a table back here for food. You'd have like your couch right there. Some elite drawing skills. Then you'd have like the tech area all here, and then more tech there. So overall, this is a pretty swanky setup for a very small event. And that's fantastic. Great. There was one problem though that we ran into, or at least yeah, and that was the fact that the internet was not very good. So the event actually ended up being streamed in 480p because the upload was just so bad that it was impossible to stream in anything higher. But it was at least a good quality 480p. We had a computer strong enough that would allow for that. So that's what we did. And then everything was local recorded in 720p. So it was nice enough that we had a computer that was strong enough to be able to do that along with having all the capture cards. So probably the first thing that we learned, I'm just going to kind of like write down right there, is, oh, can I do text? Does text work? Check. Oh, why is that so large though? I don't want it that large. It can probably be a little bit larger. Okay, check venue internet. And that's one of the things that we learned. Going forward, anytime we're planning an event now as a group, now it's marathon, the first thing we do is once we find a venue that we like and has the space for us and everything like that, everything else works, we always send a person down there to check the internet. And we don't just check, we check the wireless and we check the hardwire, because the hardwire is what we're going to use, but obviously, if need be, Wi-Fi is also a good option as a failsafe, but we want the hardwire, and we always ask, hey, can we have a hardwire here or something like that? Most venues, they'll be able to drag an internet cable to where we want it. It's fairly standard practice. But, so yeah, that's one of the first things we learned. Check the venue internet. So even though this was a super nice setup, as a stream, it was pretty bad. So that's kind of like the first thing. The second thing is knowing your equipment. Yeah, I don't like. I wish I had the option to like just there probably is. Just convert your handwriting. That's okay. That's Paint 3D, man. What are you doing? Should be. Why is it not typing now? So one of the things, can I get rid of this? I don't want the text thing anymore. Go away. Gosh darn it. Go away. I don't want you. There we go. A lot better. So, like I said, the event was a hodgepodge of different equipment. So we had a computer that was a dual CPU Intel server that was used as a desktop. So that was able to kind of have all the capture cards and everything like that. I didn't understand at the time how good of a thing that was, which leads into mistakes in the second event, which I'm not going to go over. I kind of want each event to be its own episode, if you will. But so we had a reasonable enough computer for the time, and it inspired the current build of the desktop that I'm using, mainly because I have a bajillion capture cards in here, and a server is essentially the only way you're going to be able to do that. But then we had capture cards brought in from different people. There was like a PEX capture card, and there was like a Dazzle, and just a hodgepodge of different equipment that everyone brought. Then there was a bunch of video scalers that were brought in, including my DVD-OI scan that I personally brought in. And then there was some other kind of generic video scalers. There was lav microphones that were brought in. But the problem was with the hodgepodge of equipment and everything coming from different sources, there wasn't really a way to test the equipment or for anybody else to really get familiar with it, which was a big problem, beyond the fact that adapters were left at home and everything like that, which led to some issues there. So I'm just going to redraw this. Is there a thinner? Pixel pen, watercolor, calligraphy pen. Ooh, let's try that. So if we kind of break down this room here, oh, that's kind of cool. And we have our couch. Yay! Actually, we have 1, 2. I like stick figures. Okay, so that was kind of like the camera feed, and that was done with a just a regular Logitech webcam, probably the C920, because that thing's been around forever. But at first, what we had was actually a very big microphone right there on its little tripod. That's a microphone. That doesn't really look like a microphone. And there was a problem with that. So it was set to omnidirectional. So even though the microphone was like right here, this little dot, okay, it picked up everything. Like, I wonder, can I make this thinner? Hey, do like 50% opacity. It was picking up everything, okay? And there's actually, at some point in one of the early VODs, you can hear me because we were looking at chat, obviously, a bunch of us, or at least the people who were interested in the tech side of trying to get things working. You can actually hear me say, chat is stupid. They clearly, there's, the microphone's not picking everything up. Foot and mouth definitely was, but I didn't realize at the time. I didn't even really know what microphone pickup patterns were. Now I know that there's so many different pickup patterns. There's like omni, cardioid, figure 8, hypercardioid, all that stuff. But back then, did not know any of that. nobody really knew that. It's one of those things where it's like, well, I have this microphone, and I mean, it sounds good, but nobody really tested it or knew how it would work in a group setting environment. And after the first couple games, we just axed that. We just axed the microphone there, and we switched over to lav microphones. Now, I wonder if I can select. We're just going to delete this here. Yay. So we'll go back to the pen. So as we learned, slapping an omnidirectional mic just in the room, it was great at picking up voices and everything. Probably sounded potentially better. I haven't looked at the early VODs in a long time. Maybe that's something to do in the future. But we got rid of this microphone very quickly. Actually, I don't even know if you can see the mouse. No, you cannot. Anyways, that dot right there, we got rid of it very quickly. And we actually moved over to a lav mic. And the lav mic, I was smart enough that I quickly picked up, because basically this was my experience going into the event. I took video tech every year but grade 9 in high school, okay? So I understood how cameras worked. I understood how microphones worked. Didn't remember any of it. I don't think we actually went over like microphone pickup patterns and everything, but I knew how to like kind of operate a mixer, everything like that. Because there were masses and band stuff and everything like that I kind of helped around with. But realistically, I was not the audio person that event. Somebody else was kind of doing that to make things sound reasonable. But I was, and at this point in time, there was no designated tech person for this event. There was just a handful of us, and I kind of took the part of being a video person, because that's what I understood, and it's still my forte. I consider myself a video person, not an audio person. But considering that I have to engineer a whole event at this point, years later, I am diving deeper into audio, and I understand it a lot better than I used to for this event. And this event was years back. So we had a lav mic, and if you don't know what a lav mic is, it's just a very tiny mic. Like if you have a person, you know, this is the head, very crappy head. The lav mic, you know, you see on the person, it's like clipped right there. That's the mic. You know, if you have a tie, you know, it might get clipped sometimes there, but generally they're very indiscreet microphones. Okay. We can delete my little person here. And I learned very quickly about getting the proper placement of a lav microphone, because the thing is, when you are, oh, my internet connection is faltering again. I'm not folding though. Welcome to COVID lifestyle. There, I bumped down the bit rate. That should hopefully help out a little bit. I was gonna try to stream this earlier, but did not work out. And obviously, internet takes a dump when everyone's quote unquote relaxing. Even more so now with the whole thing that's going on. But anyways, so I very quickly learned the placement of a lav microphone, and that's basically on the sternum. I could probably zoom out a tiny bit on the microphone here, or the camera. So this right here on the sternum, that's where you want to place a lav microphone. It's generally about this far away from your mouth, and that keeps the microphone at a reasonable distance. Okay. I can zoom in a little more. Cool. And I quickly learned that because the mixer that we were using was just a really kind of cheap mono price USB mixer, which for the fact that it got us through the first event, worth its weight in gold. Because it had multiple inputs and then it had a USB output, so you would mix everything on this little mono price mixer, and then it would go to the stream. But that was the first time anybody used that. And nobody realized that the output from that mixer was severely quiet. It was really bad. People in chat would constantly complain about the fact that the audio levels were just too quiet. And they were correct. It was super quiet, but it was at least balanced. And in post, the group of us spent time grabbing every single VOD, opening it up in Avidemux, a video audio program, and then boosting the audio by probably 20 decibels. It was really quiet. And we boosted the audio in every single VOD. And what's on YouTube now is that post boosted. If there were any Twitch VODs left, I believe that yeah, they were all removed. They weren't removed. They were auto-deleted. We'll get to that in a second. So all the VODs of this event on YouTube are post bumping up the audio levels, because otherwise they were really quiet. But the reason that it was also quiet was because the preamps on that mixer weren't very loud. And even though we bumped the mic up fairly high, it wasn't still loud enough. And we only had one lav mic, and then we also had a handheld. And handhelds are notorious for gain as well, because it's a dynamic microphone. Now I know that a dynamic microphone needs a lot of gain. Back then I was like, well, just, turn knobs and things work. So, combined with the fact that we also rented a lav and had zero idea of what plug-in power and everything else is. Actually, I have a prop, I think. Yes. So, we had a mic. This is actually the lav mic that we used during the second NASA event. This is a Boya M1. You can still see it still has its NASA 2 label of mic number 3. But anyways, so we just grabbed a regular one, and the difference between that one that we rented from a local kind of like camera rent shop was that it was meant to work off plug-in power. This one right here, it has a nice big capsule and there's a battery in it, but it also has a switch, which you can probably maybe see. It's kind of tiny. Let me switch for a second. Live camera. There we go. I wonder if zoom. Oh no! Come on. Come on, autofocus. Do your thing. There we go. Maybe. Oh, come on. Anyways, failed attempt. But it has a switch for plug-in power or the battery off this little capsule here. And that's why we bought these, because they had battery powered and they would work in a mixer. Because otherwise, anything that goes through the 1/4-inch jacks, they're supposed to be line level. There's no such thing as like phantom power or anything else. So we had one Rode. Let me switch back to the whiteboard here. We had one Rode Micon lav microphone, which had the XLR adapter, and we had like 2 or 3 more of those Rode microphones, but the adapters were left at home, which was in a different country from the person who brought them. So even though we had nicer lav microphones, not usable. So the whole event we had to live off of one lav mic. And I would very quickly learn that, sternum is kind of where you put it. At one point, during a VOD, uh, there was a runner who was wearing a beanie, and when they had it clipped kind of like on their shirt, it wasn't very loud. And then I was like, well, let's try clipping it to the beanie. And the whole run was done like that with kind of like the mic right here. And now I know that's actually a valid thing to do. In theater, they have wig mics where they'll have a little like a lav microphone, because theater is completely done on lav slash earset headset mics. And it just lives in like a crown or a hat or a wig or something. They generally live like right here on the forehead, because then it picks up everything right here. If you look, it's about the same kind of distance right here. So if it's up here or down here, which you can't see my hand because I'm zoomed in too much. Either way, if it's up or down, it doesn't matter. It's still the kind of same distance, and it's perfect at picking up sound. So, due to the fact that I was kind of like thrown in the fire, I was already picking up things that I now know is just standard practice, which is kind of cool when you think about it. But beyond that, the whole event had to be a hodgepodge of different things, and that's only on the audio side. So once we got past that whole audio thing where we could at least have the sound balance leveled, but quiet to the stream. And I think even on the OBS stream, because this was early versions of OBS Studio, I think it was called OBS Multi-Platform still at the point, which shows you how long ago this event was. I already added a gain filter to the stream itself, which already bumped it up by quite a bit. But that's only the audio side. And then with the handheld, whoever was on the couch would kind of just like pass the microphone back and forth. The runner themselves would have the lav mic. So that was the whole audio setup. And actually, I can show you kind of what that looked like. So I'm going to switch over to the first VOD here. Don't add a scene at the last minute, kiddos. That's okay. Actually, I will add my cam. I'm going to add my camera. Sure. Okay, cool. So, this is the first VOD. I haven't muted because, actually I could probably capture the sound, but realistically, you should just listen to yourself, not it being a re-encode of a re-encode and all that stuff. But I'm gonna hit play here. That is literally the frame rate of the game capture right there. Like, you can see my mouse perfectly fluid. That is how the early game capture happened. And as you can see, the camera here, it's super tiny. That was such a mistake in the layout. But back then, it was like, well, we want the game feed to be the biggest thing there. Which, I mean, it is, but when you think about it, like that's kind of tiny. If you're full screen, it kind of works, but there's like barely any detail there. But there's that couch that I was talking about. You can see the door right there. That goes into the other room. But so yeah, this is the second effect of going back to the whiteboard here, which there we go. Turns out if you double click an app, it just kind of works. Knowing your equipment. So the layouts were created by somebody who didn't even go to the event. Or more accurately, the layouts were graphically made by somebody who did go to the event. They were programmed into XSplit by a completely different person. And it turns out XSplit did not like running properly on this computer that somebody brought. And about one or two of the runs through, we learned that if you played without a layout, it would be perfectly fine. I wonder if I have an example of this. I do. Okay, let me quickly switch here. So this is a run. It goes to show you how bad things were at the start here. But we kind of changed the camera angle up here. You can kind of see more people. The game itself is now of proper frame rate. You can see we're adding things on the fly, and this is just awful. But it turns out when you got rid of the layout, the capture from the capture card and everything else was actually the proper frame rate. So there was clearly incompatibilities of some sort going on that nobody knew about because, again, nobody really knows how their things will react with other things. In hindsight, a lot of things can be tested. And that should kind of be like a point under know your equipment, which we'll do right now. Where's the pen? Oh, I did not realize I can zoom in. That's interesting. 3. Just gonna write it in caps. Test. That's how awful. My handwriting's not this awful. Real pen, digitized is always a little bit different, but test. Nobody actually tested anything. Nobody went to the venue to test the internet. Nobody went and tested the capture in the streaming program that was going to be used, XSplit. Nobody tested microphones or anything. I mean, they were tested to a degree, but nobody tested it in the actual setting that they were going to be used. Nowadays, as just the lighting kind of looked a little bit weird. I'm realizing that as time goes on, the sunlight from my window is kind of decreasing, so that changes the lighting. But nowadays, I do test. I test often. And like my whole room pretty much is kind of like a test bed. And I even threw a smaller event to test out other things. And I'm going to be doing that more often, where not now, because obviously nobody can get together in groups, but testing things in smaller sizes, smaller events, so that way when it comes to the big events, you've already figured not all, but you've already gone through some potential hiccups. Like even just yesterday, there's going to be an online marathon on the NASA Marathon Twitch channel, and I was preparing a remote server that I own. And I hit update. Stupid me. I hit update in Linux, which normally doesn't break things, but it broke things. And I had to restart the computer. And I restarted it. And then I couldn't connect anymore because I forgot to set it to a static IP. So I had to wait till the person who locally lives where that server is could go in and actually remote into it and set the IP back to static, back to what it was, so I can get into it from where I live. So luckily, that problem's gone now. But if it happened during an event, that would have sucked. So test everything that you can, and you will have less issues as you go. So we've pretty much covered the audio side. We'll just do audio. We had lav, and we had handheld. God, this is awful writing. Anyways, so let's get over to video. What did we have in video land? We had actually 3 scalars. God, this is actually... Can I switch to something that will work better? Crayon. This will at least work better. We had 3 scalars. We had 2 Oh my god. No, 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 no. We're not going to use that. You know what? Let's switch back to that pen. I like the way the pen kind of wrote. Which one was the pen? This was the pen. That works a little bit better. So we had 3 scalars. And we had 2 cap cards. And I think we had like 2 CRTs. Okay. So I don't need this to be that. I can... There we go. Anyways. So that's what we had on the video set. Very basic things, all things considered. For the most part, everything was actually done in composite video quality, except for S-video where applicable. If we take a look here, I'm going to switch over. This is a run. As you can see, the 4x3 layout was a lot better than the 16:9 layout. I think we made, like, this is a lot better. Mainly because of the fact that there's a lot more space here. But if we jump ahead a little bit, I mean, it's composite quality. I don't even think this VOD's in... Oh, no, it's 720. I might have scaled it, recorded it. I don't know. This might have also been one of the early VODs where it was still streamed. In either case, this is composite quality. I mean, it's not bad, all things considered. It is a little soft. If I full screen, is it... I don't know if it'll full screen for you guys, but I can see that this is pretty soft, and there's like nothing sharp. But it is what it is. There was S-video, so that was cool. S-video was cool. But for them, there was no component capture. There was nothing to... There was no component cables for consoles, and even when there wasn't really any way to kind of capture it because nobody had the breakout cable for the PEX for the component capture. It all had to go through... or no, the TVs didn't have component anyways, so it didn't matter. None of the TVs that we had component video. So it was either composite or S-video. I tried to set up a GameCube on component, but I just couldn't get it to work. But early on, everything was done with these kind of 2 generic video scalars that took composite in his video and everything. And things were fine, but there was video noise that was going through them. At some point, some wire got crossed, maybe power got switched around, ground mixed up or something. And you could actually see visible noise in the capture. And the way that we got around that, or I got around it anyways, was I brought my own video scaler, the DVD-O iScan HD, which I don't use anymore, but I've been meaning to kind of implement it into my setup because it has a frame buffer. It does have latency. I think, yeah, around 300 milliseconds. But it takes in any video input, spits out 720p or 1080p. I always had it set to 720p. And the output is fairly reasonable. Nowadays, everything's on a completely different setup. I don't really use scalars or anything, but I still keep that around in case there is a composite video signal or something like that. I'm actually going to be switching it over for video archival, like VHS tapes and 8mm video 8s and all that stuff. But so it is going to be useful to me. It's just not really useful for gaming. And back then, the OSSC didn't exist, the RetroTink didn't exist, all that stuff. The Dazzle was your top-notch video capture device because it was easily accessible. And and the GV USB was kind of just getting notoriety, I believe. But people were only just coming off of like, yeah, easy caps are the best and stuff like that. So during a very long Final Fantasy run, I kind of spent the night and fixed everything up from at least a video perspective, so the noise is gone. Looking at the VODs, I don't even think I can see the noise because it's so compressed and everything like that. But anyways, so that's kind of like the video side of things. Yes, back to the scaler though. So the funny part is we had to then learn how to adjust delays because the video scaler has delay plus the capture card delay, but the mixer has no delay in the audio. So we had to figure out what the kind of difference was, and I think it was anywhere from 200 to 300 millisecond delay that we had to kind of sync things up with on some VODs, and then everything was great. So actually, for earlier VODs, I think in earlier VODs we took the decision to sync the game audio and not the microphones because the camera is tiny and you kind of don't really notice when the lips flap, anyways. But for future events, we knew that in OBS we could change the delay of just the capture source, so that was cool. And by then we had like the OSSC and stuff as well, which we don't actually use anymore. The OSSC was used mainly for one event, and then it just kind of took like a side role for future events. So after everything was said and done, I think those are mainly the only issues with that event. Beyond the fact that, the internet was crap, the audio had a bunch of issues because it was a bunch of new equipment nobody knew. The video scaler started to introduce noise, so we put in another scaler. The stream blue screened once because the dazzle got unhooked after a capture. So that was fun. Right, we had no video splitters. That's what it was. People brought so much stuff, but nobody had an actual proper splitter for everything. So that was also fun. But it was a really fun event, though. If you take a look at the older VODs, they're still fairly entertaining, if a bit dated. It doesn't even have the current logo of the event anymore, but for what it is, it was super fun, and obviously it kind of got me started into the whole speedrunning thing, so that was fairly entertaining. But there's a lot that I learned and everyone else who currently runs that event learned, and it's always a learning process, but at this point, every other event is an improvement, I think, personally, from this first event, beyond the comfiness and convenience factor. Like, it's really hard. I wonder if I have a highlighter. Do I have a highlighter? I have a paintbrush. Will it paint? No. Okay. Watercolor, sure. So beyond, oh, there we go. That's like a highlighter. So beyond the fact that this room was pretty much perfect for the layout, and everything was close by. We have one little kind of enclosed room. Tech is super close and everything like that. And then you got all your practice and stuff right there. Like beyond all that, everything else an improvement. So the comfiness factor, it's hard because if we take a look at the camera of let's pull up a VOD here, something that's 4:3. Yeah, let's pull up this one here. Oh god, not that one because it's 16:9. Yes, we'll do this one. So if you take a look at this, like, it's really hard to beat the comfiness that is just a bunch of friends on a couch. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of yearn for in these types of events. When you look at events now, it's all on a stage and there's a lot of fancy lights and a big crowds behind them and stuff. But people like these more kind of intimate things. And that's one of the things that I'm always trying to figure out how to create this kind of relaxed environment in future events without it looking super corporate, I guess would be the word. One of the reasons you get around like this works is because people are wearing those lav mics. Like lav mics are not very big. Like literally the size of a lav mic is the size of the capsule here on this headset. And if it's on a piece of clothing, you don't really catch it. And you can get even smaller lav mics without big windscreens and stuff like that. So maybe it's time to go back to the lav mics. But the thing is, for runners, the headset's actually perfect because they need to be able to hear their game perfectly. And if they already are wearing headphones, they might as well have a microphone attached to it. But that's why in newer events, and we'll get to the newer events, I'm kind of figure out how we can have people without headsets because I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but I really don't want to end up with an event where there's a bunch of people on a couch and everyone's wearing headsets because that kind of ruins the point. I have you right beside me. I don't need you in my ears as well, right? And even when you look at panels for conferences and stuff, they're not wearing headsets. They might be wearing earset microphones or they might be having a lav mic, but they don't ever actually wear a set of headphones because that's stupid. The person's right beside you. You can hear them perfectly fine. And then it's up to tech to figure out how everyone else in the room can hear them and how people potentially online or in the recording will be able to hear them. And so that, for that reason, I don't see events, at least that I plan to have that. But the problem with lav mics, and the reason I moved away from them, is that it's very annoying and very time consuming when you constantly have a person and you got to tell them, okay, so here's your lav mic. They got to clip it to the shirt, and it takes time because if you have a bigger, like I think we had 3 lav mics for the events that we did afterwards until I switched away from them. But the whole time we were using lav mics, that's setup time. And it was really annoying because you have to clip it and then it's like, okay, now talk. Okay, yeah, I can hear you. No, hold on. Maybe clip it higher. Maybe do this or do that. Okay, now talk there. And then with a setting like this, there's no speakers, which is also, it's a pro for the technical side because you can ramp up the gain and the loudness of the microphones and you will never get feedback because there's nothing to feedback from. But as soon as you get beyond a certain amount or you throw a speaker in there so people can hear, now you have a chance for feedback and now you're limited to how loud the microphones can go. Another thing here as well is this is just a regular like Logitech microphone or webcam. It's just a regular Logitech webcam, which means that you can bring the lights up in this room as high as they can go, open up the windows, do whatever you want, and everything kind of looks nice because there's a lot of light in there. As soon as you bring a projector into the room, now you got to dim the lights. Now the cameras are not going to look as good because there's not enough light going in. Even now, I had sunlight. Now I'm kind of just working off my room light there and a table lamp there and a video light behind me as a kind of like a hair light. And even then, this camcorder, I think it's at, I want to say 9 dB of gain right now, like digital gain to the image. Because, you know, it's a smaller sensor and everything like that. If I was using like a bigger kind of like DSLR or mirrorless or something, it would have a lot better light gathering. But even now, like I have kind of brighter lights in this room to make things kind of visible for the camera. If I was on a webcam, it would probably be even worse because they don't have that good of low light sensitivity, especially older ones. So that's another thing as well. It's as soon as you start adding in like projectors and stuff like that, the light level in the room goes down, which then kind of changes the view of here. And I mean, other events kind of start adding in like professional lights and everything like that, which then lights up the people on the couch, but everyone else behind them is kind of like dark and not really visible. So that's one of the things as well that it just changes the vibe. But yeah, um, I can't really remember if there's anything else I wanted to kind of hit on this event. I think it was really fun, and that was kind of like my first taste in trying to help plan the event. I wasn't even part of the initial planning committee on this. I was just in the forum posts where this was planned. I was like, yeah, I got some video equipment and I'll be down there. And then I kind of just took over. I mean, people let me take over, and now I kind of run the event. So, you know. But this event was a lot of fun. And then there was one thing that I realized that I needed after this event, if more NASA events were to take place, and they are, was that I needed something that could actually take in a bunch of inputs and split them, a video matrix. And I own that. I bought it literally the same year. I bought an Extron Crosspoint 128 Ultra, I think, the model, the newer one. It's an RGB HV. It has 5 BNC inputs on the back. And then, it can take RGB or component or S video or composite. And that was used for an event shortly after, which was great because I bought it and I was the only one who knew how to use it. So I didn't really get any sleep the first event it was used. But that's probably a different story for a different day. Realistically, the key takeaways is if you're planning an event, like it can be a hodgepodge of different equipment. Even NASA today, different organizational members own different pieces of equipment, and people will bring in other pieces of equipment to use as well. But you have to know how everything will interact with each other. You have to know, if I use this for this purpose, it's going to act in this way. So, yeah, you have a nice big blue Yeti or something, and you can drop it on a table in front of the couch. But reminder, if you set it to Omni, then it's going to pick up the whole room. So even if you're at the computer and like just talking to the person normally with headsets or lavs or something, it will not pick it up. But that big Omni microphone, it will pick it up. So that's something that you have to realize. Testing internet. Always go to your venue in person. Even if a place says, oh yeah, we got great internet, test it out for yourself. The year after that, we literally tested the internet on site, got to the hotel, and the internet in the jack on the wall didn't work anymore, which will be kind of talked more in depth for the next episode, where I'll go over NASA 2017 as an event. But yeah, so I mean, as long as you have fun with it, you can make any event work. I mean, there are 4 playlists here. If we take a look, let's close this up for a second. Like, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of content here for NASA 2016, and I mean, it's still been going. There's 2017, 2018, 2019. There's smaller events like the ARPGME that we help host, Horror Throne Monster Marathon, which is like a Halloween thing that we host. We helped. We gave our platform to Unchartathon, and we helped it with this is the little event that I was talking about, kind of like a test bed, but the event's still going on. It was just a bunch of friends having fun doing a speedrun event. So, yes, thank you, Jai. That is an awesome picture. That's pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie, it's so blurry, but it's pretty awesome because it's just how everything started. Just a bunch of speed friends at an event doing stuff. So, yeah. We'll switch back to the live cam here. That's flipped because I don't like my face facing this way when there's content on the screen. I don't know why. Nag just plugging things into each other right off the bat. Yeah. Yeah, just plug. Actually, now that you brought that up, I do remember that I actually plugged things in the wrong way into the mixer because the game capture had ground loop isolators on them, so that way there wouldn't be any ground hum. And I plugged it into the output of the mixer, the RCA outputs, the mix, and that caused noise in the game. And then later on, like somebody realized, oh, this is not where it's supposed to be. But that was just me kind of playing around because the whole audio situation, trying to get stuff fixed. Actually, I can probably just pull up that picture for into the Firefox tab here so people can see what Motion shared in the chat. That's the picture right there. That's me. That's me right there. Look at me. Barely changed. Yeah, this was like the tech setup. These were the tech peeps. Got the headphones on and, you know, serious looking people. And Niglaria right there just plugging stuff in. Like, this is a mess. But it worked. So, you know. Actually, I didn't even show that. There we go. Hey. Hit transition on your scenes. Pro tip. There's me. And there's Motion. There's Niglaria. Want to say that's those crazy guys there, probably. Or could have been Taraj. But either case, yeah. Just, you know, bunch of speed friends having fun. I guess at this point, before I kind of close things, does anybody have any questions? If you watched this episode, thanks. You are awesome. But otherwise, does anybody have any questions about anything from engineering this first speedrun event of mine that I participated in? Or any questions for, like, if you wanted to start engineering an event, what you should probably do? And then we'll wait. And then if there are no questions, then I will cut the stream. So, fun times. I do like this whiteboard stuff, though. I just need to get kind of, like, better at it. But I think it can be reasonable. Maybe if I got, like, a larger whiteboard and then I kind of just, like, moved it around, that could be a thing. Quickly check the socials on my phone. Okay. That's probably enough time. If you do have any questions, hit me up on Twitter, on the stream_side Twitter. Because that would be awesome. Otherwise, thank you for watching me babble about this event. It was kind of incoherent. I only had a basic plan in my mind of how to do it. But hopefully future episodes will kind of be a little more organized, and there's obviously more events to talk about and more things to do. At some point, I do want to kind of go over retro. Once I reach the point of explaining the second NASA event, I would like to go over how Capture actually works with that, or at least how Capture should be working with that, using the data path cards. But yeah, talking about all this stuff, kind of just like the history of the first event and the technical side of it, a lot better than trying to explain microphone and audios and stuff, because I am not an audio person. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys later.